Jibrin was not saying and is not saying anything new. This is what the civil society has said over time, about the level of corruption that is endemic in the National Assembly. Jibrin has only validated some of those claims. So now moving away from the person and then moving to the issues. The issues are very clear. The leadership of the National Assembly as is presently constituted, the membership of the National Assembly as is also presently constituted, have a whole duty to Nigerians to provide answers to many of the allegations that were raised by Jibrin. That is number one. Number two, dealing with the suspension. Every internal system as an institution has its own internal procedure. So the internal procedure was for somebody to raise an issue, for there to be a committee, there had to be a fair hearing, for you to appear and then state your issues. Jibrin failed. He failed to discharge that duty by not appearing by that committee. I mean, he made the request that it should be public, civil society should be invited. Those were also granted. So the first thing is you should have just attended to show these are my grievances. Even if you have issues against the chairman or even members of the committee, that is raised and is documented. So it vindicates many of your allegations. So the internal procedure of the House of Rep is what actually led to the suspension. That is the person. Now we're talking about the issues. So now the House of Rep already shot itself in the foot by taking an action on that one. So now the next question is, what about those allegations? So if the House can sit to say this man has breached or abused our privilege by granting interviews, by stating whatever, then what about those issues that he raised? So there must be a response to that. It is not about a person, and that is where we need to be very careful. It's not about Dogara. It is not about Lasso. It's about the National Assembly. So because we tend to immediately lose focus of issues once persons are removed or are relieved. The moment Patricia Ete was removed as the speaker, everything was like, okay, now we go on. There was no prosecution, there was no conviction. It is just reduced to Dogara should resign, and Dogara resigned. So all those allegations of misappropriation, corruption, fraud, and padding would then be confined to the dustbin. So no, we have to say no. We are not going to go that way. Even Salisu Buhari, who was also indicted in all the, was also just relieved from office and made to go away. So this one we must insist and say no. Even if Dogara is removed today, we must ensure that those who are accused, either it is Jibrin raising false allegation, then you will have to also face the music for that. If those people are truly responsible and guilty for many of those atrocities, then they must be made to face the music. Talking about recession, it is not only about just the buying and selling in terms of the ridiculous states that you've taken almost some of the proponents of the sale of the national assets have reduced the discussion to that pedestal level of saying just sell the national assets. And then you would want to ask yourself, where are the monies coming from? Are you also selling to people within the system where the economy is experiencing the recession and you think that takes you out of the recession? The answer is outright no. Are you talking about people coming from outside to come and buy and then they bring the foreign exchange? Which possibly could say yes, but then we need to check our antecedents. What has been the practice in the past? We've actually practically sold many of the lucrative government-involved business in the country. And the Constitution actually says that the commanding height of the economy would reside within the government. So the government must be in the control of the commanding height of the national economy. So government is already moving away from that. And that is a violation of the Constitution. The Nigerian Telecommunication Service was sold by the government to many of these guys, who are presently encouraging the government to continue the sales. The Nitel, since after it was sold, you never hear anything about it in the last 12 years. So it has not even produced a GSM line or even a minimum of 10,000 subscribers when the likes of MTN, Airtel, Glo, that started even afresh, are already talking about tens of millions of subscribers. The Nigerian Airways went the same way as well. So usually what many of these characters does is they want to buy these so-called companies that are either non-producing or are moribund as a result of the political interference of people in offices. So they buy at such a peasant amount. They are not buying the company. They are not interested in reviving the company. They are only interested in asset stripping. And asset stripping is you buy Nigeria Airways, for instance, at the face value of the scrap aircrafts that you see on the ground, and then also the hangars at the airport. But meanwhile, Nigeria Airways has properties in New York, in the US, that the value of each of them would even immediately neutralize the cost that they buy. The same thing goes to the Ajaokutas mill. The same thing goes to Osogbo rolling mill that was bought by even Dangote. You know, the same thing goes to Virgin Nigeria that was bought by Jimoh Ibrahim and was granted even just mere months after. So when you're looking at over 300 national assets sold by previous government, you can't even see any one of them either being revived or even being operational or even being commercialized. So what you have is just some characters within the system. They go to bank. They don't bring in any new money or investment. They go to bank, they get collateral to borrow that money, and they sell the assets to even pay for the money in many instances. And that tells you that it is not about even bailing the country out of, recession. It is taking advantage of the precarious situation that we are economically to also immediately start doing this usual asset stripping within the system.